All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 135-pound division, where Gervonta Tank Davis's team had a reaction to a claim made about Devin Haney and Bernard Hopkins. And let me tell you, man, the whole thing is real interesting. Comedy on one end, accusations on another. Let's chop it up and talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we are going to be in the 135-pound division, where Gervonta Davis's team, on a live stream that I had, reacted to something that was said about Bernard Hopkins and Devin the Dream Haney. And it was said by no other than Bill Haney, the father and manager, I believe, of Devin Haney, and also the person that runs Devin Haney Promotions, from what I can see. Now, Bernard Hopkins had made some statements about younger fighters, and specifically about Devin Haney, that they did not like very much, and basically called him Bernard Hopkins Django. And if you're familiar with the Samuel Jackson in Django Unchained, he was it's a different kind of guy. I don't like to talk about those type of things specifically, but what they continued to say about Bernard Hopkins got a big chuckle out of me. It got a big chuckle out of them. And so we're going to break it down. Before I get into that, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you're new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, so you can be notified of when we release more videos. And if you are a longtime subscriber and supporter of the channel, thank you so much for continuing to talk with me about this boxing every day. Also, man, I know you guys are out there about to watch Super Bowl, so if you actually took the time to watch this video, triple, quadruple thank you. All right, so this is what was said. Bernard Hopkins had an issue with younger fighters, and saying that they had basically this thing about, different generations of fighters, and how younger fighters aren't doing what people in his generation or my generation did, right? Criticized, that was taken by Team Haney in a way that they didn't appreciate it. And they basically said that he is, a Django, the Samuel Jackson in Django Unchained, which means pretty much he's somebody that does not support his own culture, takes advantage of people in his own group. And, the word that people use for, raccoons, but you take out the RA in that, and that's what you get. In the midst of that, though, he said something about Bernard Hopkins as a fighter, and said that Devin Haney is a better fighter than Bernard Hopkins was. That Devin Haney made more money at 23 years old than Bernard Hopkins has made in his entire career. And that Bernard Hopkins was in the penitentiary when he was 23 years old for petty theft, and did not win a championship until he was 30 years old, where Devin Haney has never been in jail before. He's never done that. He's never, he doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, is now undisputed champion, making a bunch of money. And Bernard Hopkins is wrong for not 100% supporting him. Now, let's break that down. First of all, anybody that believes that Devin Haney is better than Bernard Hopkins as a fighter, man, let's just see how that plays out. Personally, I think that is a stretch beyond stretches, as Bernard Hopkins is without a doubt one of the best middleweights to ever walk into a boxing ring. When people talk about middleweights after the year of 1970, right? Not talking about Harry Greb. I'm not talking about, guys at the turn of the century. I'm sure there are people in the 30s and the 40s, right? Guys that were excellent middleweights, all of that. But I'm talking about since in the last 50 years, you have three people named who come up as the greatest middleweights. They are Carlos Monzon, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Bernard the Executioner Hopkins, who has a record for the most title defenses of a middleweight championship. So I do believe he was somewhere around 21 or 22 title defenses at 160 pounds. He was also an undisputed champion at 160 pounds. He also beat multiple Hall of Famers, Hall of Fame level fighters at 160 pounds, from Oscar De La Hoya, who moved up to challenge him, to Tito Trinidad, who moved up from 147 pounds to fight him. He eventually beat Roy Jones Jr., but fought Roy Jones Jr. at 160 pounds before, either one of those guys were, when they were still young and they were still on their way to becoming champions, when they were both young contenders, fought them early in his career in one of the toughest fights that I've seen for Roy Jones Jr. and Roy Jones Jr.'s career before, it was a difficult fight. It was a more difficult fight for him than for Roy Jones Jr. than James Toney was. So the idea that because Devin Haney has beaten George Kambosos for 3 of the belts, and some would argue 4 of the belts, somehow puts him on the same plateau as Bernard Hopkins, because he did it at 23 and Bernard Hopkins didn't win a championship till he's 30. Let's also remember that Bernard Hopkins fought until is fighting at a championship level well past 45. So he may have started his championship, got his first championship at 30 and started fighting somewhere around 27, to say he's 25, 26, 27 years old. But he had a 20-year career on top of the sport and is one of the greatest middleweights, consensus, one of the greatest middleweights to ever put gloves on. But the idea that he should not be able to say something about younger generations of fighters or younger generations of people, period, is funny to me, especially when the people that are criticizing him literally do the same thing to other younger fighters. Bill Haney is not shy about talking in a critical way about fighters that are current fighters, like Gary Russell Jr., like Gervonta Tank Davis, like Teofimo Lopez. There are several people that they have the same issue with that Bernard Hopkins, that they have issues with. And so to say that Bernard can't say something about Devin, but it's okay for everybody else to say something about Gervonta, just kind of reeks with hypocrisy to me. Now, for me, being a guy that is younger, I'm younger than Bernard Hopkins is. I suspect that I'm somewhere around the age that Bill Haney is. My take on the matter is that I personally will say and think about whatever I want to think about younger people who are in a profession. I'm not talking about personally, because the game isn't about how quickly you get there. Because there are a lot of people that at 23 years old, they're doing well. And where are they at 30? There is the thing about achieving it, but there's also being able to survive and last decade after decade after decade after decade. So Bernard Hopkins, while I don't necessarily agree with everything Bernard Hopkins says, and I definitely believe that, there is, some angling and some personal interest in some of the perspectives that he takes, just like Tim Bradley, just like Bill Haney, just like anybody else that's in the business that make their living off the sport of boxing, right? They're going to do those things. But and as a boxing fan, because that's what I'm, a boxing fan, you just kind of have to take what everybody says with a grain of salt. But the one thing that I'm going to definitely take with a grain of salt, looking in that boxing ring, is that anybody, I'm not just talking about Devin Haney. I'm talking about, I don't care if it's Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence Jr., Canelo Alvarez. You put anybody in the sport of boxing right now that is going to be able to convince me without any question that they are better boxers than Bernard Hopkins. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm telling you, I do not know. And I don't think, and honestly, I don't think that they are. Bernard Hopkins was a special type of fighter, man. That's a rugged, highly successful, highly difficult to beat. Style wasn't the prettiest in the world. Style was straight brutal. But man, you can't tell me that Canelo Alvarez right now if a prime Canelo Alvarez wants any part of a prime Bernard Hopkins. I don't care who it is. And if you put Bernard Hopkins the same weight as Devin Haney and have those guys fight, oh man, hey, he better put some pop on that punch, because otherwise, man, that's going to be a lot of trouble. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Deuces.